As a Surge member, you'll unlock access to resources that build confidence, motivation, and mental well-being to empower girls to stay in the game today and pave the way for their future success. Up your game with free professional development and curriculum resources for coaches and athletes. Foster community and connection with VIP access to girls' sporting events, coaching forums, giveaways, and workshops hosted by industry-leading partners. Make waves with exclusive Surge branding packages, designs, and apparel. Recognize and celebrate with special awards like Team of the Season and Athlete of the Season to uplift and honor your female athletes. Unlock exclusive offers, including new product sneak peeks, promos, and member-only Surge stores. Fresh content designed to empower female athletes will be added to the platform every month. So, together, we can help power girls forward.
Welcome everyone to today's webinar, Inspiring Future Female Leaders Through Sport, in partnership with Women Leaders in Sport. It is my pleasure to introduce today's host, Patti Phillips. Patti is the CEO of Women Leaders in Sports, a vibrant community of over 5,500 members on a mission to develop, connect, and champion women to advance and be powerful influence in sports. Patti has led the organization since 2010 and created a space for women to develop skills and leadership potential through mentorships, leadership training, creating platforms for connection, and building a powerful community of women supporting women. Welcome, Patti.
Thanks so much. Women supporting women and men supporting women. And we've got one of those great ones here today that I'll introduce in just a second. But we're thrilled to be here. Thanks for including us, and welcome to the Surge community. This is going to be a great conversation. We have an amazing panel of leaders that have worked in the business of sports for years, and we're excited. We're all engaged and really excited about this conversation about inspiring future female leaders in sports. So I want to introduce my amazing panelists. First, we have one of those male champions we are just referring to, Vic Schaefer. Vic, give us a wave. Hopefully you'll be highlighted here. Vic's one of the greatest basketball coaches of all time. He's currently at the University of Texas, two-time National Coach of the Year. He was the 2023 Big 12 Coach of the Year, and he's guided Texas to the Elite Eight in 3 of the last 4 seasons. He won a conference championship in each of those last 3 seasons. We're going to miss seeing the Texas Longhorns here in the Kansas City for the Big 12 championship every year, but you're going to get to hang out with Tiffany Daniels. So Vic, welcome. So thrilled that you're here with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, and we'll hook them all day long. Next, we have Jennifer Lynn Williams, who is the Chief Development Officer for USA Basketball. Jennifer has been a longtime member of our organization, has a great history in college and the pro space. And Jennifer, one thing I want to say about you is you've secured the largest donation ever for USA Basketball, $3.5 million last year, which we're excited to hear more about. And it was the most significant gift ever received by the USA Basketball Foundation. Jennifer was also an AD at Alabama State University, and she was the 2018 Women Leaders in Sports Division I Executive of the Year. So Jennifer, welcome. We're so thrilled you're with us today.
Thank you, Patti.
Next, we have Tiffany Daniels, the Associate Commissioner for Competition and Senior Woman Administrator at the SEC. And Tiffany's on the executive staff, has oversight of the league's sport administration and championships. They have 21 sports. She's held previous posts at Georgia State University, the Georgia Dome, the NBA Atlanta Hawks, the Orlando Magic, WNBA's Orlando Miracle, NHL's Atlanta Thrashers, and the Phillips Arena. So she has extensive experience in the pro and the collegiate space. And actually, as we were talking before, she's living this with her daughters right now. So we can't wait to dig in there. She's also been recognized by Women Leaders in Sports with our Nell Jackson Executive of the Year Award. There you go with the pennant. Well played, Tiffany. And she also was in the 11th class of Sports Business Journal's Game Changers, which is a huge deal. Tiffany, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. And finally, If y'all have those little emojis on your computer, go ahead and pull the goat out now, because I'm going to introduce one of the greatest of all times, Carol Hutchins, the former head coach at the University of Michigan softball. She was there for 38 years. There's a goat for you, Coach. She's the winningest coach in NCAA softball history. She guided the Wolverines to titles and 22 Big Ten conference titles. And Michigan was among the top softball programs in the country. She was inducted into the National Fast Pitch Coaches Hall of Fame in 2006. She's the winningest coach, male or female, in Michigan athletics history. So everyone, the GOAT, round of applause. Coach, I think we just got her off the golf course where she should be, having retired. And so it shows her commitment that to be here with us today. So Coach, thanks so much. We're really thrilled you're here.
I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm sure there's a lot to discuss.
There's a lot to discuss, and we have the all-star team here to do it. So I've introduced you all with the top line, but I want to go around. I think it is part, and throughout the conversation, I'll be sprinkling in some of your history, but I would love for you all to give the 1 to 2 minute kind of career journey. I think one important thing as we talk about inspiring, girls, to be future leaders, we understand that you don't just get there. There's a trajectory in everybody's career. So just kind of give a quick overview. And actually, I'm going to switch up the order here. Tiffany, let's start with you.
Oh, okay, no problem. Thanks again for having me. I'm really excited to be here. This marks, this past Monday marks my 11th year with the Southeastern Conference. My role has definitely evolved over my tenure here with the conference office, but I view this as like a culmination of the stops that I've made across my career in professional sports. You mentioned the teams that I worked with. I was a graduate student who was very resistant to what my professor saw in me. So one of the lessons that I've learned across this is when there are others that see something in you, you have to lean into that. And take their advice, because there are things that you just don't see for yourself. And that's really how I got started in the business. I knew I wanted to be a leader in sports, but certainly wasn't sure what that looked like. And so for me, I've spent time in professional sports and sales, figuring out people's need 'ems and got 'ems. That's what they teach you when you first start selling. And that produced skills in relationship building and assessing people's needs. And so I took those skills from professional sports sales in the NBA, the NHL, the WNBA, to the Georgia Dome, where I was responsible for selling that building and marketing it nationally and bringing great events to Atlanta, Georgia. I consider it to be the world class of facilities, even though it expired way back when, and now we have the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I've been here at the Southeastern Conference now for, again, as I said, the last 11 years. And I get the opportunity to produce lifelong memories for our student athletes. Coming here was about giving back to the conference that I played in. I played for the University of Georgia, so I am a former student athlete. And so I want to make sure that this journey as a part of my career has been about making sure that young people, young women in particular, see themselves in me and see opportunities that are available to them, and that I have an opportunity to influence what they ultimately become.
Yeah. Tiffany, thank you. That was outstanding. And I do want to say, I love that you mentioned, because I think for everyone on the call, if we want to inspire future female leaders in sport, seeing the potential in others and speaking it into them is really important. Someone did that for you. And so we need to make sure we're all doing that for others. I know coaches do that. So Coach Schaefer, let's have you jump in here. You've had an unbelievable storied career, several different institutions. Did you always know you wanted to coach? How did you get started?
I don't know that I always knew I wanted to coach, but I think looking back on my career and even my playing career in high school and college, there were things that happened that pointed me in that direction. And I'm going into my 40th year in coaching. It's really hard to believe. It doesn't seem like it's been that long. Coach Hutchins will tell you it flies by. And I've driven the van, gotten out, coached the game, got back in the van, drove it back to campus, 8-9 hours each way, you know, to the games, and to where I am today. I mean, I started back in 1990 at Sam Houston State with no assistant coach, one graduate assistant. I can tell you what my budget was in 1991. It was $20,574. That was for everything. Team travel, referees, equipment, you name it. That was all of it. And yet, you know, throughout my career, going from there to Arkansas, to A&M, to Mississippi State, and now at the University of Texas, I've seen so much and been a part of so much growth. But I think the biggest thing I've seen, obviously, is so much support for our student athletes, and it's really been fun. It's quite rewarding. We have a saying here at Texas: "What happens here changes the world," and we take it a step further with our women and with our student athletes. I believe what they do here at Texas and what they learn here at Texas allows them to go out in the world and change the world. So I've really been fortunate to be around so many great young ladies that have played for me. It probably all started back with my mother, who was very strong. I'm proud to say I'm a mama's boy. Even though I've had to bury my mother, to this day, I'm a proud mama's boy. And, you know, she was so good to me, and said, you know, we talk about toughness a lot as coaches, don't we, Coach? And, man, I think back to my mother. I don't think she had a bad day. You know, she was tough, and being a registered nurse, and just how much she cared about her job and the role she had in newborn and delivery at the hospital. So I'm really fortunate, and obviously fortunate to be where I am right now. We have a new challenge in front of us going into the Southeastern Conference, but I've seen and been a part of a lot of evolution in our sport, in our game, and again, feel very, very blessed to have had the opportunity to do that.
Yep. And you've impacted a lot of lives, Coach. And we're going to come back to that too, as far as your perspective as from a male coach to your female athletes. But we're going to come back to that. The big question is, if you and Jennifer Williams were playing one-on-one, who would win? Because we know Jennifer had a great career at UNC, but Jennifer, tell us a little bit more about how you got to where you are.
Yes. I'm going to say I would probably take Coach Schaefer, just because I do a lot. I still work on my Orange Theory, so I'm still a fit if I can keep it going. But no, I wanted to say I always knew I wanted to be an impact player in sport, but I didn't know what that looked like. And when I went to Carolina, the only positions I really saw women in were coaching. And I knew early on that coaching wasn't for me, but I still wanted to be a game changer in sport. And so I started in television. I worked at Fox Sports right out of college, but it was very, very challenging. I did not like television. I was very good at it. People encouraged me to stay in it, but at times you have to look and do what's in your best interest. So I had a scholarship through the WBCA, the Robin Roberts Sports Communication Scholarship. And so I went to grad school. I wanted to work in sport administration. I felt like going to grad school would give me that insight I needed. And so finished up at grad school. I knew I needed to surround myself by women leaders. So I applied for an internship at Women Leaders in Sport. It was NACWA at the time, and was accepted there. So to be on this call with you, Patti, and to be on the board now is a full circle moment. But from Women Leaders, I went to DePaul University, where I worked in fundraising. So I've always been on the external side of things, fundraising, alumni affairs, corporate sales. So went to DePaul. From DePaul, went to North Carolina A&T, where I was an executive team there, oversaw the Aggie Athletic Foundation. We were recognized as a model booster organization by CASE. from there, I knew once I got into sports administration, I wanted to be an AD by 40. That was my goal. I took a job. It was a newly created position at Alabama State to be a deputy AD. And through some changes there, I was able to be elevated to the interim athletic director and then the athletic director, where I led for almost 5 years until I now transitioned to the Olympic movement. And I'm at USA Basketball overseeing the foundation here. And we're doing amazing things in the community. Not everyone's going to be an Olympian, but our messaging is that we can teach you how to go for gold in life through basketball. So excited about Paris, looking forward to bringing home 4 gold medals. And yeah, happy to be here.
I love it. We're going to teach everyone on the call how to go for gold now. All right. Inspire us. I love it. All right, Coach Hutchins. Again, the greatest coach of all time, definitely in softball, but you have so much experience. Talk about you were at Michigan for 38 years. Is that what you always wanted to be? Was you always wanted to coach, or did you just get in it and found out you're really good at it?
Well, I can tell you, whenever you start coaching, you're not good at anything, and it takes a long time to figure out what the hell you're doing. But honestly, I was a kid that grew up in Lansing, Michigan, about 1.5 miles from Michigan State, and all I ever wanted to do was play in the backyard. I played with my brothers, and I grew up in the 60s and 70s when there was nothing organized for us, and all my brothers got to have organized sport, and I didn't. And I always watched Michigan State football, and so that was my goal. Is I wanted to go to Michigan State, and I wanted to play football for Duffy Doherty. And so as it evolved, and it wasn't until my senior year in high school, we had varsity basketball. We had played like club level, stay after school, girls athletic activity, whatever they called it. And I played basketball and volleyball and did some track stuff, but it was kind of sort of organized. And then they had a varsity basketball team. My first experience ever getting to be a real athlete with a real uniform. And I'll tell you what, I fell in love with basketball. My high school basketball coach impacted me, Ann Johnson, and I started playing competitive women's softball. We didn't have 16 and under, 14 and under. We had women's ball. And I was a 16-year-old playing with 20, 30, and 40-year-old women who were role models and mentors to me. And of course, some of them were just my flat out idols. And my summer softball coach, Kay Purvis, those 2 women impacted me and helped grow me up through sport. And I just knew I wanted to be them. I wanted to be what they were to me, because I'm not where I'm sitting right now, and nothing in my life, including getting into college, because I went to Michigan State and I was on Karen Langland's first basketball team. And truth be told, basketball was my first love, but softball was what I was most, good at. And so, and thanks to Nell Jackson, by the way, who was our track coach and our women's athletic director, I might have had a few miscues along the way, and she helped mentor me and help me make sure I got a chance to go to Michigan State. But I always knew I wanted to coach, and I thought I wanted to coach basketball. But my network, my life, it really evolved towards softball. And I went to Indiana University. I was a GA for Gail Blevins, and talk about the GOAT and the legend of softball. She wasn't yet, though, but she took me in. I was her graduate assistant. I coached down there. It was my first coaching gig, got my master's. And then I went up to Ferris State College, which now a D2 school. Their SWA/volleyball coach, Kathy DeBoer, who I played basketball with at Michigan State. And she said, "Hutchie, you need a job." And I said, "Yeah. Well, our softball coach is pregnant." So I went up there as an interim head coach, my second year of coaching, and inherited what she had was a fabulous team. And we did well. And I ended up coming down to Michigan as an assistant for a couple of years for Bob DeCarolis, who went on to be the athletic director at Oregon State for a long time. And, I just was in the right place at the right time, and got to live my dream at Michigan. It was never hard for me to go from Michigan State to Michigan, because I was going to coach and live my dream. And as my mom told me for a lot of years, speaking of moms, you never left college. I'm still in college. I still work at Michigan. I said, "Well, Mom, why would you? Being in college is the greatest experience of your life." And for years, I I believe this as sure as I'm sitting here, the greatest classroom on this campus in Ann Arbor is on my softball field. The greatest lessons these young people learn, because I used to think we were supposed to win games, win championships. And then I got older and wiser, and I'm like, we're just supposed to grow these people up, and they can go out and make the world better, because we're all supposed to make the world better. And really, that's what we all do. We're growing up these young people using the lessons through the challenges, the adversities, and learning how to get away from the average and mediocre and how to be great and chasing excellence. So, you know, I had a lot of great years. I have a lot of great young people. They're all my kids. They're all my family. And I just feel like I was the luckiest person in the world to get to be in Ann Arbor, Michigan, my whole career. Absolutely. Things you're not going to see very often anymore. I hate to tell you.
Yeah. I love it. Chasing excellence. We're chasing gold. We're winning gold. We're doing it. So those are great interests. So this gives us an idea of who we have on the call here. I mean, we have, you know, coaches, we have administrators that are now in different spaces. And so all these perspectives are really, really important. And I want to ask all of you, you know, the youth and high school administrators, what we're hearing on the youth level is they're having a harder time keeping girls in sports. And we want them to be in sports so they experience what we're all talking about here. So do you have any tips, any advice that you can give everyone on the call that are, you know, that are trying to keep the girls in the sports that they're in now, all across the board? Any thoughts? Yeah.
I really believe that the impetus behind all things are the parents. And the parents put an unbelievable pressure, unintentional probably, on their kids to be perfect, for everything to go their way, to be the stars, to be the starters. And I really think the reason kids get out is because the reason they have a lot of issues is because they don't want to disappoint their parents. They can't begin to live up to the expectations that somebody else puts on them. And the parents are not championing the same things we as coaches are, which we champion people who are great teammates. We champion people who are working towards the right things and trying to help make the team great. And they champion whether they played a lot of minutes, whether, you know, the coaches put in the right people or pulled the pitcher too soon. And I think that's really where administrators and coaches have got to really spend a lot more time messaging and educating the parents for what athletics really should look like, and how every kid's journey is just so different. And how to be a good parent is to just love your kid and ask them, can you do better? And then go do better.
Right. I think, Carol, everyone probably agrees with that. And yet how are youth coaches able to get to the parents to give that message? Vic, at the collegiate level, I know you deal with that, obviously, but at any of your camps, and we all agree with this, the parents are putting pressures on. How are you dealing with that?
Yeah, you know, first of all, from my perspective with my current players, if I think that there might be an unhappy parent in my group, I don't dodge them. I worked for Coach Blair for 15 years. Once the season started, I dealt with all the parents. He did not want to talk to a parent from the time we started practice till the season ended. He didn't want to deal with talking about playing time. I do a lot of what he does, but that's not one of them. If I think I've got a parent that's unhappy, I make sure I go see them after a game. I find them. I'm going to give them an opportunity to talk to me, and I tell them, look, you feel free to call me anytime. To me, that's the answer with my own parents. In regards to these kids in high school, two things. One, I've seen during my career, y'all, back in the old days, the girls' basketball coach was the offensive coordinator. It was his second job. You know, you always have to coach two sports. Well, that was his second sport a lot of times. Or it was the assistant baseball coach's second sport. What we've seen now is administrators, principals, they're hiring really qualified people. And I think that's critical to the next thing, which is these kids need to have fun. You know, the game's supposed to be fun in high school. And I think what Coach was mentioning is that, man, it's hard to have fun when there's just so much demand and built up pressure, whether it's intrinsic or whatever. It's just hard to have fun at 15, 16, and 17. The game is supposed to, even at when we get them, it's supposed to be fun, even though it may be a little bit more intense and there's a little more involved. And yes, winning is important, but I just think at that level, having fun but having qualified people that can not only teach the game, but, you know, love these kids and love them in so many different ways, but also understand, like Coach said, our job is to get them ready for the real world. And while I believe the real world is a great place, you and I both know it can raise its ugly head some days. And our job, I say this all the time with my staff, I believe we're really good at what we do. And when the real world does rear its ugly head, our kids at Texas can handle that day because of what we've taught them in the gym, what we've taught them outside of the gym, the things that we really spend time with them on. And so I think, to me, as y'all know, they're making kids now, they can't play numerous sports. They're making them pick a sport. You know, when I played everything and loved it. Nowadays, they're making them pick one sport. They play it in high school, then they go play it all summer. It's nonstop. And sometimes that's a lot, especially with the pressures to be great, to be on great teams. Well, what if you're on a really good AAU team, y'all, but you're not playing? What's the point? And we see that a lot.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where the unhappiness with parents and with kids comes a lot of times, is just like in that scenario. So to me, having fun, but also having really good qualified people that can coach and teach these young people in their formative years.
Yeah. Jennifer, I know in the Olympic movement, you know, you got to keep people playing, and then you obviously want them playing on the collegiate level and elevating up. Do you all have any programs specifically around this?
Yeah, so we have a lot of youth camps and clinics where we go in specifically for elementary and middle school age students. Now we have them those who are at the high level, where you could look at being on one of our junior national teams. We also have it at the grassroots level. But I wanted to piggyback because I have a 9-year-old daughter, and I see it with her, even at the YMCA level. Their students are being forced youth to specialize way too soon in sport. And I agree, at this age, I was playing everything at my daughter's age. And I believe it makes you a better athlete all around. I didn't specialize till really the end of middle school and focused on basketball. And even in high school was allowed to play 2 sports. So I do think the specialization, and then parents with the unrealistic expectations, they need to be invited to platforms like this to hear from administrators, from leaders in the industry who can tell them what it looks like, because burnout is real. And Tiffany, I know you've probably seen it. I've seen it when I was on campus with students coming in as freshmen, whether they're tapped out mentally or physically from just playing year round, they're tired. And so we tend to lose a lot of students in that leaving freshman year, going into that sophomore year in college. But yes, to speak to programming at USA Basketball, we have it for all levels because we want to encourage everyone to play. And not, again, everyone's going to be Olympian, but there are so many skills and value that come through playing sport.
Yeah, Tiffany, jump in here. I know you, oversee and initiate a lot of programs for the student athletes in the Southeastern Conference. And of course, you're a mom as well. We were just talking about that. And I just saw someone in the chat, keep throwing things in the chat. Someone said burnout, anxiety. What are you on the conference level doing, particularly for like freshmen coming in? It's a huge jump. What are some of those programs that you all have instituted?
Yeah, I think so. A lot of what transpires within our conference happens at the institutional level.
Mm-hmm.
However, what we have tried to do is to get our mental health professionals together, talk about best practices so that they can put together and lean on each other to identify things that are working really well. One of the things that we have been very intentional about is not putting together conference-wide programming related to mental health, stress, and anxiety because the student populations on each one of our campuses are different in what they are dealing with. But the ability for us to bring those mental health professionals together to talk about what they're seeing on their campuses, to share what has been successful when they are dealing with common issues. It allows them the opportunity to teach the teacher, but then also just this chance to see around the corner in some instances. This may not be happening on my campus today, but this may be what is coming around the corner and allows me to think differently about how I can plan for that issue happening on our campuses. So that's one. Two, our Dr. Katie O'Neill is our chief medical advisor, and she has really done a great job of bringing together not only our mental health and mentally with our student athlete population. And then the ability to tap into resources that they think are working really well has been an output of that conversation. We focused more on trying to reduce the stigma associated with issues related to mental health. May, as you know, is Mental Health Awareness Month, and they have worked together to put together programming and awareness type information to make our student athletes feel like there's nothing wrong with you. Just like you go to the doctor to get a physical and get a checkup, it's nothing wrong with you seeking that same type of checkup and help around issues related to your mental health. We'll do some similar things in October because that is Suicide Prevention Month, just in terms of education and what to look for. And then the last thing that I'll tell you that we have done as a conference is trying to do some mental health first aid training, so introductory training, not only to our medical and mental health professionals, but also for our coaches, administrative staff, and even with some of our student athlete leaders, so that they don't need to be the one to administer the help, but if you see an issue, to be able to report it to help your teammate or your friend that competes on another team, to bring to the forefront. Maybe you need to go talk to somebody and be that gentle nudge for their student athlete colleague, that we can kind of push people towards getting the help that they need, even if they don't recognize that they have an issue.
Yeah, that's great. So we have all athletes and coaches on this panel. I actually was a coach as well, and I played ball. And Vic, I'm curious, since you are still coaching at a very high successful level, Coach Hutch, you just retired. How much do you think the characteristics and attitudes of players has changed over the years? And how much did you have to change as coaches? And whose responsibility is that? And then I also want to hear from the administrator perspective. So how are we kind of bringing all these things together? I know I've said many times, man, I thought I did okay as a coach. I could never coach today. It's just a very different world that we live in. And some coaches haven't transitioned very well. Vic, you have, obviously. So can you talk about what that has looked like? And do you give advice to coaches that come to your camps? And then, Hutch, jump in there as well. How did you transition to these kind of new athletes? What do you think has changed in the last 5-10 years with the athletes that are playing now?
Yeah, I still believe kids want structure. I believe their parents want their kids to have structure. I believe they want them to have discipline in their lives. I've done it. I'll be honest. I've sat in staff meetings with my staff, and we've talked about this very thing. And I'm like, hey, maybe I need to do this. Maybe I need to do. And they'll stop me and go, "Now, Coach, hang on just a second. We have been really successful doing it this way. our kids have all, they're graduating, they're being successful in life. I think we're doing, and I give my staff, y'all, look, I'm smart enough to know I can't do it by myself. I hire great people, and I have an all-female staff. And I'm telling you, and Coach Hutchins, she'll tell you this. 10 years ago, we didn't have mental health people on our campuses. We were the counselors. And when I say we, mainly my coaches. One of the things that I do is I have my players come sign my door every day. I want to see them outside of a uniform. I want to see them outside of a practice jersey. And it's nothing, they sign my door. If I'm on the phone, they'll wave. If I'm not, they'll come in, give me a fist bump, might give a quick hug, and then they're off to class. But what it provides is an opportunity to walk by 3 full-time assistant coaches' offices. And if something's on their mind, they're going to step into one of those coaches' offices and talk. And so up until the last few years with mental health, my coaches have all been wonderful at helping our players a lot in getting through things. Of course, now we have these professionals on campus, and I've got to tell you, I had a young lady this past season. She was not doing well. We came to an understanding. Hey, you need to step away. She stepped away, y'all, for 3, maybe 4 weeks in the middle of conference. Like I from a basketball perspective and a team perspective, that potentially had a chance to really affect her team. But at the same time, it's what was needed for her. And y'all, when she came back, she was so different. It was amazing how she came back as a vibrant, happy, just a different, young lady. It was so encouraging. But I think that speaks to the people that we have here at Texas and the role that they play in our mental health capacity. But so from that standpoint, again, I have an unbelievable staff. They do a great job. We are really in tune with our student athletes, probably more than they'd like us to be sometimes. We know more about what they're doing than they probably want us to know. But I have a saying, I never want to have to make that call at 3 or 4 in the morning. Yeah, right, Coach? Because that's probably not a good phone call. And lucky for me, I've never had to make it. But I think a lot of that has to do with how we're involved with them in so many areas. And we know, we just really take great pride in being there, both as coaches and as off the floor people as well. But for me, where I'm at in my career, again, I'm not on 18, but I'm probably on the back 9 somewhere. And there's just a way we've been able to do it and have a lot of success doing it that way. And again, I'm a son of a bird colonel in the United States Army. I woke up to reveille every morning, y'all. So structure, being accountable, that's a word, y'all. You want to talk about the problems or the change in the world today? That to me is where it starts, and then is the lack of accountability that we have in our world. And that's not something that we are here at Texas and in our women's basketball. We are very accountable. I'm accountable, and I try to teach my kids to be accountable. No matter what it is, we'll get through it, but we're going to be accountable with it. And so I think for me, what we do, I think that's been the secret to our success. One of the secrets to our success is just the structure, the accountability. The greatest form of love, y'all, is discipline. It's in the good Lord's blessed me with the accountability piece where I'm not afraid to let them know, hey, that's great, and you love on them, or hey, that's not good, and we got to do better. And there's an accountability for falling short in that area. And I'm going to bet, I don't know Coach Hutchins real good, but I'm going to bet her program, the success she had, it probably had a lot to do with some of those things, because to me, those are the non-negotiables. There's just certain things that you just can't sacrifice in your program. And again, we all have heard it, you know, they got to know you care about them. The best piece of advice, y'all, I ever got was from my wife early in my career. And it's simply this: if they don't like you, they're not going to play hard for you. And if y'all know anything about my program, it's the single thing that I take the most pride in, is that people will tell me all the time, "Good night, Vic, your kids play really hard." And that doesn't mean that you got to go hang out with them or you're going out at night. That's not what that means. But they got to, in other words, they got to know you care about them. They got to know you love them. And again, part of love is discipline. And I think my staff and I, we care deeply about these kids, and it's what we do. Whether you know, you've heard people say, well, it's not what I do, it's not who I am. I am a women's basketball coach, but you know what? That is who I am. I am a women's basketball coach. I have 52 bad weekends a year, y'all. I take this phone to bed with me on Friday night, and if it hadn't rained by Sunday morning, I've had a great weekend. And lucky for me, I've had a lot of really good weekends. But man, I'm a big worrier. I got that from my mother. I worry, and I do. I worry about these kids all the time, because, as you know, we're not with them a lot in the big picture. You know, of 7 days a week, how many hours you're with them. And I don't worry about my kids. I worry about who they're around. And when you're in a community of 52,000 students in a city of millions, there's lots to worry about.
Okay, so, you know, great coaches have to show that they love and care about their players is a big piece of this. Hutch, I saw you leaning in, and then Jennifer, we'll get to you.
Well, I couldn't agree more that the most important thing we do is provide a structure for these kids. And Sue Enquist said this once, not all that long ago, but it was a while ago. And she said, you know, kids have not changed. Today's kids haven't changed, but parenting has changed. And parents spend too much time. They don't want their kids to, you know, we fell off a bike, we got up, we bled, we got a Band-Aid, and off we went. And now we make sure they don't fall off the bike. You know, that's kind of how they're raised. So
didn't have a helmet either, did we, Coach?
No helmets, and that explains a lot, right? But I think, you know, I agree with the accountability piece. And I think what I have really leaned into, especially now that I'm on a little bit different view, the most important thing we're doing when you talk about accountability, we're teaching young people, we're teaching all people to own their own success. Nobody else can own it. If you're waiting for me to put you in the lineup, you're never going in the lineup. I don't put you in the lineup. And you have to take entire ownership of your life and the things that happen to you and how you respond to all of them. And so those are the things that we are teaching. But I still go back to the parents who will tell you when you sit down in their living room, or will tell you until it happens to them. You know, when kids aren't playing, it's not all bad. They're getting better. They're following a great trajectory. They're learning life lessons. We're providing a structure. You know, they break curfew, so they're going to sit out a game. All the things that we provide, they're the ones who struggle the most with it, because I think the young kids are impressionable. They want to be loved. And I think they do understand to a degree that some of the discipline we do is love. They get a lot of conflicting messages. And for those listening, I spent the first, I don't know how many years of my career not talking to the parents. And then I finally decided we need to send a letter to the parents every year before the season so they understand where their role is, the role of the parent in the program. And I basically wrote a very short letter: dear parent, either leave your kid in Ann Arbor with me or take them home with you. Love, Hutch. And so we had to make that look a little better and a little more, you know, pretty. So my assistant fixed it up. But, and then now every time that the freshman parents, everybody moves back to campus, we have a meeting with the parents. And my good friend Rhonda Rebel, who's the head coach at Nebraska, after we got through the Zoom era, and we did a lot of Zooming with parents during COVID, she Zooms with her parents several times a semester. The more you can include them in what you're doing, because their angst comes from the fact that they have to let go and let somebody else lead their child. And I've had a number of instances where I think some of the faults of parents are they don't want their kid to trust anybody more than they trust their own parents. And we need the complete trust. So creating trust is a lot more work, requires a lot more communication and education. But I think kids, they want to please, they want to do well, they want to earn your respect and your love. That hasn't changed, and they have to learn. It's a learning curve to be great at the levels that we're at. Regardless of whether you're at a junior college, a high school, a JV, they have to learn. And it takes, you have to really manage each person a little bit differently.
Yep. A lot of gold there. Any other thoughts on that topic before I go? And actually, I've got another question for the group, but everyone on the call, start putting your questions in the chat. I want to leave about the last 10 minutes for Q&A, and you can talk directly to any of the panelists or all of them. So be thinking about that. But I do want to ask, yes.
Hey, Patti, just one last thing, and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but Coach Hutch said something that really resonated with me, because I think about my freshman year as a student athlete. There were 7 of us that came in, right? And we were all stars where we came from, right?
Yeah.
You bring these kids who had this high level of success, and now they're trying to figure out where they fit on a team. And Coach Hutch, I remember very vividly, because I grew up with coaches like you all, I wasn't depending on Coach Landers to pick me as a starter. I was going to work hard enough so he didn't have a choice. And I think that's what's missing, right now with what we're seeing with young kids. And it's candidly, Patti, you mentioned, I have 2 daughters. I have a 15 and 16-year-old. And sometimes they'll come off the field of play and start talking about, Coach did so-and-so. And I said, well, what did you do? Or what didn't you do? Right. And so this ability for us to get in, I got involved with coaching my kids, even though I did not have the time, at a very early part of their athletic careers, if you will. And it was because I didn't want it to be about the wins and the losses. I wanted to teach them how to work hard, and their classmates and teammates to work hard. I wanted to teach them accountability. And so a lot of going back to the very first question that you asked, how can we help? People like myself and Jennifer have to get involved at the youngest of youth levels where we can, to impart what we've learned from coaches like Coach Vic Schaefer and Carol Hutchins to the kids today. And then parents see that and see how that looks a little bit different. Maybe later on, they'll remain and continue to play because they've seen it done a little bit different than maybe what they're experiencing right now.
Can I add one thing as well? I'm sorry. I wanted to say that as administrators and coaches, I also feel as if you have to set clearly defined expectations for your student athletes. I can think back to my sophomore year at Carolina when Coach Hatchell benched me. I was not given a reason why, but I would have liked to have known that as a student athlete, you're not going to play because we want to go with a bigger lineup. I was a smaller power forward. I could have accepted that. So I think setting clearly defined expectations, this generation wants to know the why. They want to know, they're more curious than us. I feel like, I'm 20 years removed from college. So clearly defined expectations to your student athletes, I think that leaves no gray area, and they know what the plan is going in. And then again, the holistic approach of just loving on them. They want to know that you care about them outside of X's and O's. Yeah, we know the basketball, but are you going to help us with the job? That's something my coach did phenomenally. Coach Hatchell made sure we were great once we graduated with our degrees. It wasn't just about who was the star player. It was, she cared holistically about our development. And I think if they know that, they're going to go above and beyond to be the best that they can be for your program.
Excellent.
Patty,
Clearly
Patty.
defined expectations are so important in all spaces. Yeah, go ahead, Vic.
I was just going to say, just two things, terminology, two sayings that we say all the time. Going back to them, make me play you. And then, I've had to tell kids before when they're maybe not, playing as much as they want to, hey, stay in the picture. You got to stay in the picture. I had to do that with my own son in baseball. He'd come home, complain about the cut. I'm like, hey, buddy, you got to stay in the picture. You got to stay in that batting cage after. You got to stay in there early, but you got to stay in the picture. If you can stay in the picture, they won't forget about you. And sooner or later, it's going to come back around to you. But you got to stay in the picture. But anytime I've run into kids, and I think it's a great point that Jennifer makes. And that's all about communication. That's all that is. But she's right. This is a why age.
Yes.
Why me? How come? Why? And so you've got to communicate with people.
Why not?
That's why I've chosen to not dodge my parents. And again, I've been on the other side of that, but I've always kind of been that person, even when I was the assistant. So I got experience at it. So, but just stay in the picture and make me play you. I think those are two terminologies that you can use with high school kids, junior high, college kids, and that to me is very clear.
Everything we're saying is so transferable, and that's why we're having this conversation. It is about elevating female athletes into leadership roles, working in sport. And I love this. I'm fired up, and as employees, stay in the picture, make me play you, make me invite you into the room. All this is transferable. And this is what we've been talking about, how sports is the most perfect training ground for life. And we started the call with that. And I've got one more kind of general question here, but if you have questions, anyone on the call for this, world-class group of panelists, start dropping them in the chat here and I'll make sure. But here's my last question, and I'll keep my eye on the chat too. What advice would you give anyone on the call that wants to have a career in sports, or that knows someone, your daughters, for instance, Tiffany or Jennifer Lynn? What advice do you have for people that want to have careers in sports?
I always start off with, especially when I have the opportunity to talk to young people, the same grit, the same determination that you have to achieve your goals in sport and as an athlete, that's what it's going to take to work in sports. There are a lot of people that want to do the jobs that you're vying for. And so you have to make sure that you're willing to put in long hours. You might have to look the other way at what the zeros are in your check, because when you first start out, it's not as lucrative. I worked in professional sports. I used to have to tell young people that I looked to hire, the comma checks are in the professional athletes checks that we have on our roster. The comma checks don't happen, in this office. And so just making sure that they understand that there is some instances you have to pay your dues and be willing to work a little bit to get what you want, which is what you're already accustomed to as an athlete. The other thing that I always tell people is relationship building